Hi, welcome back to Burning River Bushcraft. This is the pyramid board bow from a previous video. This has been one of my more popular videos lately. A lot of comments, a lot of people liking this bow. This has been a good shooting bow. I still shoot it a lot, but this is not the current bow that I'm building. Today we're going to be building version 2.0 of my pyramid board bow. So this is the bow we're going to be building today. This is version 2.0. This is an improved version. The improved version is significantly shorter. It's about 4 inches shorter overall. This is an overall length of 68 inches. And I have the same working limb length. So what I did is I shortened up my riser significantly. So this is a pretty big improvement. So there's nothing wrong with either bow if you want to build the original, but the new bow shoots just as well. It's shorter, more compact, and does have a more comfortable grip. So enjoy the build of our improved pyramid board bow. If this is the kind of thing you like to see, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to be notified of my latest videos, and leave me a comment in the comment box. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Burning River Bushcraft. I also teach outdoor classes at outdoorcore.com. Like most of the board bows that we're going to be starting with, this is red oak. So this is 2.5 by 3/4 inch. And this is pretty nice stuff here. What you want to do is be very, very picky. You want to make sure the grain is running straight down the board. So 2.5 inch using a full width is a little bit much. I would rather be over 1.5 inches. So 1.75 to 2 inch is kind of my happy spot right now. But this one we're going to be using all of the board and sticking with the 2.5 inch design. So when you pick your board, these are going to be stacked up with 10,000 crappy boards on top of this one. This one's going to be hid way in the back. And a lot of times the boards have a little bit of a flex to them. And you're going to want to sight your board. And if there is a slight curve to the board, you can see this one curves this way. So you're going to want to put that on the back of the bow. So that's going to be on the target side of the bow. So I'm building this bow for a 29-inch draw. So this is going to be a 68-inch bow. You can upsize or downsize that number depending on your particular draw length. I am about average on draw length, so that's what we're going to go with for a baseline. So once I cut this to 68 inches, I found center. So it's 34 inches on either side. And then I found middle of the board. So this is a 2.5 inch board. So I'm 1.25 inches in and 34 inches in from both sides, and that's dead center. So once I found center, I went 2 inches top and bottom, and that's going to give me my 4-inch handle. Now I want 1.25 inches total width for an actual handle. So even though the handle is only going to be 1.25 inches at its widest point, I went ahead and cut 2 inches. So I've got 1 inch on either side of the line for the entire width of the handle and the riser itself. So that's going to give me plenty of meat to work with, and I can cut a shelf in depending on how the limbs bend. Once I determine my top and bottom limb, at that point I'm going to cut my shelf in. So I'm going to leave myself plenty of meat. So from right now, I'm going to come from this 1.5 inch mark out to the full width of our limb. In this case, that's 2.5 inches. Now I also found center on the tips of the limbs, and my tips are 1/2 inch. So I'm 1/4 inch on either side. Because this is a pyramid bow, from the outside of my limb tip all the way back to the end of my fade, this is all going to be one straight line. So I just used a straight edge and marked it all out. So now that I got the entire thing marked out, before I make any of my cuts, I'm going to deal with this thickness. So this is way too thick for a bow, and I'm just going to take one cut the entire length and then glue my handle block on. So that's a difference in this design. They're quite a bit easier to build this way because I have my limb the same thickness all the way through the handle block. Now when I attach the riser block to the back and beef it up for a handle, that's going to give me the strength in the middle where there'll be a non-working section of the bow right where my hand is. So we're going to take this board down to 1/2 inch. And if you have the thickness planer, that's going to be your best bet to do it. Table saw would work out great. You could use a hand planer. What I actually use is a circular saw with a rip guide. My method's not ideal. I'm using the tools that I've got. And I'm just taking a sliver off. So my next cuts, I'm going to use my circular saw and go right along these edges from fade to limb tip. And then I'm going to go heavy on here. I'm going to cut down to the fades with my jigsaw and then leave myself a heavy block. That gives me plenty of meat so I don't commit to which limb's going to be the top and which limb's going to be the bottom too early in the game. So on our riser block, I went ahead and marked out my fades. So I'm 1.25 inches in from both sides. That's just how I like the looks of it. I scored the top with a saw, and now I'm just going to use a chisel to chip out the gouge and to make it nice and smooth. I'm not quite to the lines, but I knocked the edges off pretty good. This is close enough now where I can get the sander and give myself a nice smooth radius. All right, so the riser block itself is oversized widthwise, and it's going to glue on like this. So to help the glue stick to this smooth surface, I'm going to go ahead and pockmark it up. So what I've done is I've scratched out lines. This is where the riser block's going to sit. So you could use a drill bit to punch little holes, maybe an 1/8 inch deep or so. And what that does is allow the glue to set. What I use is just a steel chisel. And when I hit it across the grain. So the grain is running front to back. So I don't ever have this chisel striking like here where it actually split. So I go across. So I'm going sideways, sideways, sideways. You could use a drill just the same. This is a lot faster and it works pretty well for me. I'm going to be using Titebond 3, and I put this on and I size it. So I'll put it on and then let it just start to get a little tacky before I put the two sides together. So I'm going to butter up both sides pretty well. The glue's not dry at all, but it's just starting to follow a little bit. So it's starting to set, and I'm gonna go ahead and follow my lines and set this into place. So I'm gonna let this sit like this overnight, and then we'll get back at it tomorrow. So I cleaned up my profile. I'm thick on the limbs. My handle block is ballpark. I can start to flex this limb, and it's still stiff, still way too stiff. So I'm just going to take a little bit of meat off this, and once the limbs start to flex a little bit, then we'll go ahead and put a tillering string on it. So because this is a board bow and not a traditional stave, this is D-crowned. So there's no ring that I'm chasing like an Osage bow. It's kind of rough here. I'm going to go ahead and just sand this off, and it's going to burnish it, so it's going to make the fibers a little tougher on the back of the bow that's going to be flexing back. And then I'm also going to just knock these edges off. So if you don't follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I showed pictures of my baby buck saw. It's kind of hard to get the scale in some of the pictures, but this little sucker does a great job cutting nocks. Here's our nocks, all cut in. Got the tips rounded. The back's burnished, the ends are knocked off. This thing should be ready for tillering string. So I barely have anything at all on this. I'm
I'm gonna just exercise these limbs a little bit. Then I'll put it on the scale and I'll see how the weight is and see if I can get closer to an actual brace height. So it's actually bending pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and shorten up on this tiller string. And we'll try to get it set to a brace height, and then I can start carding the limbs to get my weight. So that's not bad. That's short, but that's ballpark actually. And let me flex these limbs. Let me flex these limbs a little bit. So I'll check this at a couple spots. So I'm easing into my weight. I'm about 20 inches of draw, and I've got my target weight, which is about 45 pounds on this. So I'm gonna go ahead and card these limbs down. So I'll maybe do 10, 20 passes on each side. So I've got this bow braced up again, and that's pretty legit. I'm at full brace height. I've exercised the limbs because it's been a couple days since I've been on this, and I want this bow to remember that it's a bow, not a stick anymore. And then I'm going to, we'll go ahead and check the weight on it, and then we'll continue down to get to our final weight. So the desired weight on this bow is going to be about 40, 48 pounds, 46 pounds, in that range. And I'm getting to that at about 24 inches. So I'm going to take, probably 10, 20 passes off on both sides, top and bottom. It looks like it's flexing really well to me, and we'll just continue this process. So this bow is flexing beautifully, and I'm at my desired draw weight, but I am 1 inch short. So it probably needs, maybe 10 more passes with the scraper. Before I get that far, I'm going to go ahead and just address this handle, try to round it in a little bit. I am going to set up, I will make this the top limb. So I'm going to put my strong limb on the bottom. This limb here just seems to be a little bit stiffer than the other side. And I do have them marked on the handle just with the timber hitch end and the braided end. That's how I mark it. That way the string always goes on the same side of the limb. So I'm going to set this up. So I'm going to use this as my shelf. I'll go ahead and just cut this one off. So I'm not going to get real crazy with this yet and contour the handle right. Because I like it flat to sit into my tillering tree. But I'm definitely going to get rid of my extra shelf. I'm definitely going to start to round in my fades. All of this is not needed anymore. We have determined the top limb. I could probably get to my final weight just by sanding this down. I'm going to get the edges knocked off, and I'll check it a few more times before I hit it with a card scraper. So this is rasped pretty close right here, and I've got a minor palm swell. I've still got my hourglass to it, so it's got quite a good feel in the hand.
and it is substantially bigger than the original pyramid bow. So this is one of the things I like best about version 2.0 of the pyramid bow. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and card it and sand it. I'll do that off camera. And we are getting awfully close now to our final weight. So before I take any more off the belly of the bow, I'm going to go ahead and sand it all out, get this grip, get all my rasp marks sanded out, and then I'll check it on the scale and we'll see what left there is to do to this. So here it is. This is 48 pounds at 29 inches. The overall length is 68 inches. This is my updated pyramid bow handle with the riser that's slightly smaller, a little more compact. And that'll be a nice shooting bow. I'm going to put a serving on it and we're going to shoot some arrows out of it. So that was about 12 yards away, and I'm actually struggling with this tab a little bit. This is just a primitive homemade tab I made on a previous video, and just not feeling it today with this bow. This shelf is not super wide. I've got some bows now that I'm shooting without a shelf off my knuckle, so I'm kind of playing around with this. I prefer a shelf. This has no padding or anything, so if I'm hard into this shelf, this is the arrow that's kicked out. It didn't draw back the same for me. But, you know, this is a heck of a bow. So I believe I'm starting to approach the limits of a red oak board bow. So I've got some Osage, I've got some hickory, I've got some ipe, I've got some bamboo as well. So I'm going to start exploring this same design with just some different woods. So I may not do the full build. I'll probably just finish it up and then show you a performance of each different bow species of wood with this same overall design. So that's a nice little group down there, and this is a heck of a shooter. I'm going to go ahead and finish this bow up with a tung oil finish. So this improved pyramid board bow is a heck of a shooter. This one is, again, 48 pounds, so this is a lot closer to hunting weight. It's a great practice bow. Gives me a little better feel than some of my lighter bows like my bamboo horse bow. But this thing absolutely is something you can make economically. This is less than $10. It's fairly quick to make, and this improved design is even better in the woods. It's a shorter overall bow. It's really pushing the limits for a red oak board bow. So go ahead and build one for yourself. Till next time, this has been Jamie Boggs with Burning River Bushcraft. See you soon.